Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to watch One American versus 250 Germans, and this is a World War II documentary. So, I have heard a lot of Indian stories, such Indian stories where one Indian soldiers or some Indian soldiers have fought with so many. I have heard these stories in two ways. Like, I have heard these stories in my religion also, because in my religion my religion is still very small. Like, we are about 2% in India. So the thing is, we always had to fight a lot of people. So I've heard those stories in my religion also, and out of my region as a country also I've heard these stories. There is a Indian movie called Kesari. So in that also it is about 13 soldiers who are in Afghanistan, and what they do is they fight all these Afghani rulers, and the thing is they are working for the Britishers, and what they do is they fight all these people, and that is about thousands and thousands of people that are coming onto it, and if they directly go to the place, then the British outpost will get hurt. So their job is to stop them till night or till morning as much as possible, so that they can get enough time, and they do a very good of a job, only those 13 guys. So we have all these kind of stories. So these are stories that show that how a man can become just a Goliath at the moment of survival.
Yes.
When he is like, okay, now I have nothing to live for, now it's just me versus these guys, I'll show who fucks better. And now this we will see, like, who is this one American who fought 250 Germans, and that too at that point of time. So let's see. Let's see the video.
January 1945, the German army in the West was in serious trouble. Following the failure of Hitler's last offensive gamble in the Ardennes, the Allies were forcing the German soldiers back out of France and threatening the border of the ever-shrinking Third Reich. The Nazis retained only one major foothold in France with its vital bridges across the Rhine, an area known as the Colmar Pocket. Desperate to retain this position, they launched fierce counterattacks to drive the Americans back. It was here, across these very fields, on the 26th of January 1945, that the legendary Lieutenant Audie Murphy would make one of the most remarkable one-man stands in the history of warfare.
Audie
In this
Murphy.
short video, we'll use the latest technology, on-the-ground footage, veteran accounts and archive material to tell his incredible story.
Wow, I'm excited. Audie
Murphy.
Murphy. Medal of Honor is the biggest honor you can get in.
By early 1945, Audie Murphy was already something of a legend amongst American forces and the men of the veteran 15th Infantry Regiment, although maybe an unlikely one. Born in rural Texas in 1925 to a poor farming family, Audie had always been a small boy. And when he enlisted underage in the US Army, aged just 17 in June 1942, his medical examination recorded he was just 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighing 112 pounds and of slender build.
How was he approved?
His stature, combined with his boyish looks, earned him the nickname Baby during his training. But as we'll see, what Audie lacked in physical presence, he more than made up for in courage and skill. Landing in North Africa in February 1943, he joined Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, and quickly came to the notice of his superiors as a quick-thinking soldier and a crack shot. In July, Murphy first went into action, landing at Licata in Sicily, starting a period of frontline combat which would not end until May 1945. Constantly on the search for action, he was promoted to corporal by late July and was with US forces when they landed at Salerno, where he single-handedly charged and knocked out a German machine gun nest which had pinned down his platoon.
Wow.
By December, he was a sergeant and fighting in the Anzio bridgehead, where he destroyed a German tank and drove back an enemy attack, earning the Bronze Star in the process.
He was growing so fast.
Despite several bouts of illness, Murphy always refused to be evacuated to hospital and once had to be forcibly dragged to an aid station. Unsurprisingly, he was soon back in the line, re-landing in France this time as part of Operation Dragoon in August 1944, where he killed 2 snipers and knocked out another machine gun nest alone, earning the Distinguished Service Cross as a result.
Wow.
In October 44, Murphy achieved the incredible feat of earning 2 Silver Stars in 3 days for fighting through German ambushes, personally killing and capturing several dozen men, acts which also earned him a rare battlefield commission, but they came at a severe cost. Shot in the hip by a sniper, he developed gangrene and was hospitalised for several months before discharging himself from hospital and rejoining his unit. And so by January 1945, Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy, who unbelievably was still only 19 years of age, and the men of Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment found themselves engaged in the bitter fighting around the Colmar Pocket. They'd been involved in heavy fighting to clear the Germans from the area in the previous days, and company strength had been reduced from over 100 to only 40 men, with Murphy, who had once been a private in the same company, now commanding the unit. Little did they know, but they were directly in the path of an oncoming German counterattack. Records tell us that the 30th Infantry Division, in which the 15th served, were holding a position just outside the village of Holtzwihr by the end of January. But where exactly is this battle site today? In the years after the war, the precise location was lost, though Murphy himself wrote a description which serves as a useful guide.
We're at the butt end of a rough U shape, whose sides are formed by finger-like extensions of the wood stretching toward Holtzwihr. Directly before us are flat open fields, beyond which I can see a church steeple and housetops in the village a mile away. The narrow road over which we've been pounding our feet leads from the woods to the town.
With this information and the use of modern technology, we can clearly identify Murphy's U-shaped woods, the road from the wood to the village, and of course the village itself. So it was here, along this tree line, that Murphy and his 40 men were located.
Wow.
Their chief armoured support came in the form of 2 M10 tank destroyers, one of which was stationed on the road running from the woods through to Holtzwihr, with the second some 40 yards ahead of the main line towards Holtzwihr itself. Murphy had selected a spot in the drainage ditch along the main road through the forest about 10 yards ahead of the rear tank destroyer as his CP, armed only with his M1 carbine, a pair of binoculars, a map and a field telephone.
Whoa.
This location was made even more uncomfortable for the men of B Company for several reasons. First, the ground was so frozen it was next to impossible to dig in, and the men had to continually move about in the snow to prevent their feet from freezing. And secondly, the main US support was around a mile in their rear and waiting for the arrival of fresh troops before moving up to reinforce the line.
Oh, so they were all alone.
With Germans retaining hold of the northern end of Holtzwihr village some 400 yards away, these fields form the de facto no man's land.
Oh, okay.
No man's
Murphy
land,
was well aware of how precarious a situation this would be were the Germans to launch a counterattack, and so he ordered his men to prepare a second defensive line several hundred metres further into the wood where better protection could be found. What Murphy had most feared came true at 2 p.m. on the 26th of January, when the rumble of engines could be heard in Holtzwihr, a sound which was accompanied a few moments later by the sight of no less than 6 formidable Jagdpanther tank destroyers
6
emerging
tanks?
from the mist-covered village towards them.
Did they
To make
know
things
about
worse,
them or
the
not?
German armour was immediately followed by some 250 infantrymen, camouflaged in white against the snow, advancing in skirmish order under protection of a heavy artillery bombardment. Seeing the danger, and knowing that his understrength company possessed nothing capable of stopping all this armour, besides perhaps the Wolverine tank destroyers, he called to his men to prepare to withdraw, at the same time using his field telephone to call in artillery fire on the approaching enemy. The situation got worse very quickly when the rear Wolverine was struck by enemy fire, killing the commander and gunner. It began billowing smoke, with the surviving crew abandoning it and running for the rear under heavy fire.
Oh my god.
The second Wolverine, in a more exposed position, did quite well, firing continuously as it attempted to back into the safety of the tree line. Murphy recalled, though, the disheartening sight of seeing the M10's 90mm shells striking the frontal armour of the Jagdpanthers before ricocheting off, causing no damage. The situation changed again moments later when the remaining M10 left the roadway as it reversed and slid into the drainage ditch, becoming stuck with its main gun at an angle which made it useless for defence. With no way of extracting it, Sergeant Hines and his crew abandoned, leaving Company B alone to face the onslaught. Murphy, knowing his men had a better chance in the stronger line within the wood, called for his company to retire, whilst he continued, in full view, to call in artillery fire to cover their withdrawal.
While he continued.
Company B's platoon sergeant Elmer Brawley described the scene.
Oh wow.
As we withdrew, hundreds of infantrymen poured out of the woods, firing automatic weapons as they came. Lieutenant Murphy stayed on at his command post under a pine tree at the edge of the woods, and directed artillery fire by telephone upon the advancing tanks and infantrymen. The enemy Mark 6 tanks crashed through on both our flanks, firing persistently at the lieutenant and shattering branches of trees at his side with shell fragments. In a storm of machine gun fire from the tanks, he coolly went on telephoning fire orders. The hostile tanks charged by Lieutenant Murphy's command post, coming within 50 yards as they passed and firing at him. But apparently, they wanted to avoid the burning tank destroyer, and so didn't come any closer.
Oh.
With only one target visible on the field now for the German attackers, Murphy came under a continuous hail of fire, but amazingly, he stayed, firing his carbine until all his ammunition was exhausted, then moving the 10 yards to his rear to take cover behind the burning tank destroyer. This was a hugely dangerous place to be, as not only was it right in the heart of the German advance, but it was also in imminent danger of its own ammunition or fuel igniting, causing it to explode. Lieutenant Weissfenning, an artillery forward observer who had relocated to Company B's line once his own communications were knocked out, recalled what happened next.
While we attempted to hold off the tanks with directed artillery fire and bazooka rockets, the Kraut infantry line, consisting of 2 full-strength companies of 125 men each, surged across the open meadow at a wide arc. As they advanced, they fired their machine pistols and rifles at Lieutenant Murphy. Then I saw Lieutenant Murphy do the bravest thing I've ever seen any man do in combat.
What?
With the Germans only 100 yards away and still moving up on him, he climbed onto the slowly burning tank destroyer and began firing the 50 caliber machine gun at the Krauts.
Wow.
There he was, completely exposed and silhouetted against a background of bare trees and snow, and a fire under him that threatened to blow the destroyer to bits.
This is so
And
brave.
88mm shells, machine gun, a machine pistol, and rifle fire crashing all around him.
Here Murphy stayed, raining a shower of 50 caliber rounds into the oncoming German infantry, killing and wounding many and driving the others to ground.
Whoa.
He was aided by fortune too. Fearing either the imminent explosion of the tank destroyer or possibly that they still might be crewed, the German armour steered clear, and partially concealed by the smoke it was emitting, Murphy remained somewhat hidden.
Wow.
For the next 30 or so minutes, Audi held off all German attempts to move towards his position, alternating between firing and calling in artillery strikes on enemy troops, all the time standing on something which was likely to explode at any moment. In classic Murphy fashion, he would later write, "I am conscious only that the smoke and turret afford a good screen, and for the first time in 3 days, my feet are warm." Unable to advance deep into the wood and dissuaded by the occasional bazooka round and Murphy's fire, German armour paused in the fields and waited for the infantry to come forward to clear the way. From the German perspective, the devastating 50 caliber fire was now the major obstacle, and all attention switched to that, with units creeping up under covering fire to try and identify and outflank the position. On 2 occasions, German tank rounds slammed into Murphy's M10, engulfing it in clouds of smoke. Both times, miraculously, Murphy reappeared and carried on firing.
Wow.
Based in this exact location, Murphy had to simultaneously fire, call in orders, avoid German artillery and tank rounds, and keep an eye out on his exposed flanks.
God.
Luckily, he managed it.
All
As
of them.
peering through the smoke of the burning Wolverine a few moments later, he caught sight of movement just a few yards away. Swinging the 50 cal round in the nick of time, he spotted a group of 12 men in the act of getting out of the ditch to rush his position and surely kill him when he opened up on them from a distance of just 10 yards, killing them to a man. That immediate threat was gone, but things were still desperate for Murphy, who once again called back for artillery support. On the other end of the line was a radio operator,
What is
who,
this
on asking,
story?
"How close are they?" received the legendary reply, "Just hold the phone and I'll let you talk to one of the bastards." If it wasn't already clear just how perilous the situation was, Murphy's next coordinates for the artillery to fire on were his own position. In a few moments, US shrapnel was mixing with German steel as it buzzed and clanged off the burning tank destroyer in a desperate attempt to halt the enemy attack. Audi's luck held. Now drenched in blood from a recent leg wound which had reopened, he fought on, hammering the hard-pressed Germans, who finally, after more than an hour of fighting against one man, began to falter. Here's PFC Abramsky, who was watching on from the Company B lines.
For an hour he held off the enemy force, single-handed, fighting against impossible odds. When his last round of ammunition was spent, Lieutenant Murphy climbed painfully down from the top of the tank destroyer and made his way back to our position.
Okay.
Although his wound looked really bad, he refused to wait for treatment.
As usual.
He reorganized the company and led us in an attack which swept the German force back into the woods they had come from.
Wow.
After he had done that, he stopped for first aid right on the field. but he wouldn't take evacuation. The fight that Lieutenant Murphy put up is the greatest display of guts and courage I've ever seen. There's only 1 in a million who'd be willing to stand up on a burning vehicle loaded with explosives and hold off 250 Krauts for an hour, and do all that while he was wounded.
Yeah.
He must have killed and wounded about 100 of them with the direct artillery and 50 caliber fire.
Murphy himself recalled that shortly after climbing down from the N10 and making his way rearward, all the while under fire, he heard the ammunition blow on the tank destroyer. No doubt it would have killed him had he remained in the vicinity just a couple of minutes longer. It's no underestimation to say that Murphy's actions, aided of course by those of the artillery, were responsible for halting the German attack. And according to Lieutenant Colonel Ware, from the remnants of Company B being surrounded and entirely destroyed. Today, on the spot of the action stands a memorial to Audy and all the men of the 30th Division who fought and fell in the liberation of France. In the following days, reports of Audy's bravery flooded in, and unsurprisingly, he was recommended for and rightly received the highest award for gallantry available to US servicemen, the Medal of Honor,
brave.
which was presented to him on June 2nd, 1945, near Salzburg, Austria. On that day, Murphy was to receive several awards, including the Legion of Merit, presented by Lieutenant General Alexander Patch, who reportedly whispered to the equally shy Murphy, "I wonder if you're as nervous as I am." Murphy's reply, "Yes, sir, I'm afraid I am." First Lieutenant Audy Leon Murphy returned to the US
to take
in
the medal,
August 1945,
but not to take the gun in
just
front
a
of
few
250
days
people.
before his 21st birthday, being released from active duty
Being
the following
humble.
month. He eventually accepted an appointment as captain in the National Guard in July 1950 and was recommended for major. But not having sufficient academic qualifications to hold the rank, a special board had to be convened to adjudicate the case. The following is from a memo sent to the Chief of the National Guard.
A review of Captain Murphy's records shows that he was awarded the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star with Oak Leaf Cluster,
What
Legion
will
of
the
Merit,
academics do?
Bronze Star Medal
cannot
with
get
V
you
Device
this.
and Oak
That's
Leaf
it.
Cluster, Purple Heart with Second Oak Leaf Cluster, American Campaign Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern
So
Campaign
many
Medal with 1 Silver
achievements.
Service Star, 3 Bronze Stars and 1 Bronze Arrowhead, the World War II Victory Medal, the Combat Infantry Badge,
True
the
hero.
Marksman Badge with Rifle, Expert Badge with Bayonet
You would
bar,
need a new shirt for
French
it.
Fourragère
All the
in
medals.
colors of the Croix de Guerre, French Legion of Honor, grade of Chevalier, French Croix de Guerre with
Wow.
Silver Star, and the Belgian Croix de Guerre with Palm.
After careful consideration, it was decided that Murphy, the most decorated American serviceman of the Second World War, probably did have the necessary qualifications, and promotion to major
course.
was confirmed. Upon returning to the States and semi-civilian life after the war, Murphy was a national celebrity, and offers soon came in, which resulted in embarking on an acting career of more than 40 feature films, including many westerns.
More than 40
Perhaps his most
feature
famous
films.
role, though, was as himself
To Hell
in the
and Back.
1955 film To Hell and Back,
He did his
based
own
on his
movie.
own
Wow,
autobiography.
that's so cool.
Wow.
Despite considerable on-screen success, Murphy though was haunted by memories of his wartime experiences. He had significant troubles with PTSD and addiction, and
Post-trauma
reportedly
syndrome.
slept for the remainder of his life with a pistol under his pillow. He was though active in veterans activities and did significant work to support fellow servicemen. On one Veterans Day in the 1950s, Audy was asked in an interview what the most memorable day of the war was for him. This is his powerful response.
I think I was first lieutenant, and this was, I've even forgotten the date, but I was on a train going for a little rest on the Riviera for, about 3 or 4 day pass. And I heard the announcement that the war in Europe was over. And
Wow.
there's
That
nothing
was
that could
his
top
best
that for me.
Well, then this was your most memorable day.
Of
It
course it
certainly
will
was,
be.
because, as I say, those 3 years had seemed much longer than they really were, and
Yeah.
I saw a lot of good men come and go. And a lot of them, as we know, especially and remember on this day, are still there.
On 28th of May 1971, Audy Murphy and 5 others took off from DeKalb Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, on board a twin-engine Aero Commander en route for Martinsville, Virginia. It never arrived. It later
Crash?
emerged that the aircraft had struck mountains in bad weather, killing all 6 on board. Audi
Such a sad
Leon Murphy
ending.
was just 45 years of age when he died.
Really?
He was buried with full military honours at Arlington National Cemetery on Monday,
sad
7th of June 1971. At Audi's earlier request, the gold lettering, reserved exclusively for Medal of Honour recipients, was omitted from his headstone.
Oh.
He preferring the plain inscription of an ordinary
He
soldier.
was such a simple man.
This is being humble.
Yeah.
So this is the definition of a true hero in real sense. You know, what we keep on seeing in movies and stuff made up by humans, stories made up. It's all bullshit. I feel this is some... I mean, how can a real living person do all these things in such a short span of time? Because we heard that he just lived for 45 years. And the achievements that he has got, he has received, and the amount of dedication he has shown throughout his life, you know, just being there, single-handedly handling every single thing. It's not a joke. And after doing all these things, what does he want in the end? He does not want to be, recognized as someone great. He just wants to be just like any other soldier. I mean, who can do that? This is really recommendable. I mean, I don't have words. This is
very
actually,
inspirational.
this is actually just one-man army in true terms.
Yes, actually. And nowadays, like, people come out as gay, then they are said to be brave. But this is actually brave, man.
Right.
Because he is the one who fought with everyone, who just went for it. Like, he could have easily, he sent his whole platoon back. So he could have just joined them, and he could have also turned back, and he was like, okay, we'll do a counterattack from the other side, this and that. But no, he stood there, and he stood there calling like, okay, artillery fire on them, artillery fire on this and that, because you have to serve the coordinates to them. So he was doing all that, and then he mounted the gun and he stopped them with this gun also. So that's how brave he is. And the thing is, he knows that there are 250 men firing at him, he would be killed. But what he did was, he was very smart. He knew that, okay, this is a burning tank. So if they come near it, if they try to hit the tank, then it could blast. And if it blasts, then their own tank would also blast, which will be a very bad thing for them. So the Germans were also staying away from it. But it was such a valiant effort, because after going down also, he was still calling for artillery. And the last artillery shot that he told was, that message was the best one. And the man asked, like, how far are they? They said, if you wait for a few seconds, I can make that bastard talk to you. So that's how brave he is, and that's how smart he is. And he said, and the last artillery shot also, he took it on himself. And at the start of this video, I thought this man would have surely died in the war itself.
Yeah, even I thought so.
Yeah, but after hearing that he wrote a book,
yeah.
so I thought, okay, if he's writing a book, he might be alive, and that's what happened. He was alive, and then he lived for about 24 years more. But then,
and then he did his acting career also, in which he again,
played his own role.
Yeah, with flying colors, he did everything very well. I mean,
like playing your own life in a movie, that's such a big, massive goal.
I don't think how many people on this earth would have been able to do it.
So that is a very big thing, and it is a very inspirational video. So what do you guys think about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
subscribe.
Bye.